Hello, and welcome to another episode of A Conversation with Carl. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe for the latest content. Today, I am very excited to welcome Drew Calley. Drew is a psychic medium, spiritual teacher, and event host whose work is rooted in one unwavering principle. If it doesn't heal, help, or have real-life application, it isn't real. A U.S. Army infantry veteran who returned from combat carrying PTSD, Drew faced profound personal loss in rapid succession: the death of his mother, the stillbirth of his baby girl, and the sudden suicide of his brother-in-law. From the depths of that grief, a former skeptic's gifts fully awakened, and his life's calling became undeniable. His private one-on-one and family readings are specific, grounded, and evidence-based. Welcome, Drew Calley, to the conversation.
Thank you, Carl. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, let's get started. First, thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
You,
it was right after 9/11. I think I was like 25. They actually called me grandpa in basic because I turned 26 and they thought I was old, but it was right after 9/11. I grew up in Jersey and it was a big deal at the time, you know? So yeah, I'm proud that I did it. I don't necessarily agree with the politics of it and all that, but it is what it is.
it's important. You experienced deep and personal loss in a short period of time. How did you initially cope, and do you have advice for others going through the similar trauma?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say first off, I didn't know that I didn't know I had these abilities until I was like 33. So I had no interest. I thought you had to be the poltergeist lady or someone on the boardwalk. Or I thought it would be ghosts walking through the wall and talking to somebody, but it's much different than what I thought. So when I started going through when I started having that experience, I was also taking pain medication for an injury I had overseas. And I was drinking and things like that. So I got sober and cleaned up after that. And that's what changed everything. As far as going through it, what I ended up doing was, I didn't cope with it that well. I just numbed pretty much. And I'm not telling other people to do that. I'm just saying that when I got into therapy, and it wasn't a grief counselor, it was a regular therapist. And I kind of went almost to like fix my wife in a way because we had lost 8-month, 1 week stillborn baby girl. And then like 3 weeks later, my brother-in-law passed. My mom just passed like right after the wedding. So it was a lot, but the therapy really helps. And I felt like having someone reflect back to me things that I didn't even understand, that there were subconscious things that were coming up that I wasn't aware of that I had to own. And I would just say with healing from grief, particularly, it's different for everybody. And it's a really, really hard journey. And I deal with a medium at helping parents heal. It's this pretty large organization, and parents share with each other. But it's such a great community. So having a community can be a wonderful thing. There's Forever Family Foundation. There's a lot of communities out there now that you can link up with people that have been through something similar, because it's very rare, especially if you lost a child or a spouse or even a mom. I mean, I still have some people that come in for sessions and they're more upset about their cat than anything else because they were so connected, you know? So it really is different for everyone. But I would say, the first year, it's almost surreal for most people and everybody's supporting you and everyone's around. Year 2, it starts to get real and it gets harder. And I would say year 3 is a little bit better, but I would say it takes a while. It takes, I've seen people come in for a session after 4 or 5 years, and one person will be like, having a good life, going on vacations, working with their other kids. Someone else will be completely shut down. So I just think the most important thing is that they get engaged with some sort of healing.
Grief comes in waves.
Yeah, it
And
does. Like, there's no way to think your way out of it. There's no way to, even doing mediumship, when somebody passes, it still hits me really hard. Like the loss is still the same. So I think it's definitely something. And I would also say on the backside of all the difficulty and all the loss, because I really immersed myself in sobriety, a 12-step program, and therapy. And then this happened like a year after that. I don't know. I feel like the best things in my life came on the backside of those horrible things. But I kind of had to, shift from within. It was definitely an inside job, and everything helps. And there's retreats. There's the center I work out of a center in Saddle River, New Jersey, that has like grief groups and grief retreats. So I think it's different for everybody. Like some people love the community, some people don't. But I think the most important thing is people are not isolating and like taking too much medication, because that seems to be like people's first reaction. unfortunately.
So it seems as though the trauma of your loss channeled into an epiphany of sorts, leading you to become a medium. Can you explain that?
I don't know. So I would just say that this would have been the 9 millionth option. I had never thought about it. Not that I didn't believe in it, but I wasn't interested. It just wasn't on the radar. I had a successful financial service business before I did this. I made a lot of money. And when this happened, it was very in short order. My sister put me in touch with a psychic, and I was super skeptical. And I had been to psychics on the boardwalk with my brother, and they were pretty accurate sometimes. So anyway, I ended up talking to her, and she kept saying, like, Drew, you're going to do this work. And I just remember being like, what work? What do you mean? I didn't understand what she was referring to. And she's like, "You're gonna do this work, I promise you." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Your spirit guides wanna meet you." I remember she said, and I was such a skeptic. I lived in Rivervale, New Jersey, and I remember looking around my living room like, "I don't see him," you know? And I was like, "I'm just a regular guy." So I just was like, "I don't see him." She's like, "Just meditate tonight." So I meditated that night, and I had this wild experience, and it was weird. The whole time my mind was fighting and, like, resisting, saying, "This is silly. This is silly." But I was curious, and I was almost curious why I was curious. Like, I was like, but it felt like something I had to look at. So I meditated that night. I saw a waterfall coming down and a river flowing into it, which is the opposite. And I just remember my mind, I still remember to this day, my mind telling me that this isn't me. And I had this very unique experience with this male figure across the river who literally floated across the river, and I felt the warmth of his face, and I'm in my kitchen, you know, and I kind of freaked out, and I opened my eyes, took a gasp, and I looked at my dog. I'm like, "All right, Tyler, time for bed." And when I turned around, there was a silhouette in the window in the sliders to the deck, and it was him. And I was like, I really thought I was going crazy though the first couple of days, but it was almost like every time I had a thought, the answer was there. It was like they knew my thoughts before I got them. It was very interesting the way the energetic exchange and the language of energy was being revealed. And then over the next couple of days, it seemed to only happen when I would be around other people. I remember, one morning I put my hand underwater before I was leaving, and I heard like, "This is Jonathan. You got to call Jason." And I got a visual of a guy, Jason, that I know. And I just remember walking around my house like, "No, I don't. Not me." And then
So you said it happens around people. Is this happening right now?
I do this almost every day and every night.
Okay.
So when I'm off, I'm kind of off. Like if you didn't know I did this, you wouldn't know you wouldn't know, you wouldn't expect it. But sometimes it does happen. But I don't do random. I'm very conscious of boundaries, but inevitably, I was so curious. I ended up going to all these different places. I had people literally telling me crazy stuff like you have a hole in your aura, you're leaking life. And I was like, how do you fix it? And all this stuff. I ended up going to Arthur Findlay College in the UK because they had this evidence based mediumship, which I spent about $10,000 on a credit card calling psychics. And I just wanted to see what was real and what wasn't. And what I found was some people would be what I now know as evidential, and other people were just like fishing for questions and, what's your birthday and typing in stuff. And I don't know. If I was going to do this, and it was weird. It was like homecoming. I really felt like I'm in the middle of writing this book, and I just really feel of this experience. I still don't understand why. Like, I don't feel like I deserve it. I curse like a truck driver. I don't levitate. I don't have a bat phone to God. I know much less than I know, and I don't get to control who comes through, how long they stay, in what order. I always joke I can be a spirit DJ sometimes, but it doesn't always work. So learning to surrender to the flow of it and then understand, I didn't even know there was a whole thing of development. I spent probably 26 or 27 weeks going back and forth to England, to Scotland, and taking these week-long classes where you'd have blindfolds on. You would just build the intuitive muscle and you wouldn't be able to ask any questions. You had to make statements and get a yes or a no. And that really spoke to me. And the odd thing was the information I was getting was good. Other people were saying yes, and it's kept surprising me. So I just kind of kept at it.
You just mentioned it's evidence based. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so there's several different types of evidence. There's practical evidence or factual evidence, like everyone would know, like, someone passed of a heart attack. That would be evidence. Saying that someone loves you from the other side, that's not evidence. There's a big difference. There can be emotional evidence, like I know right before you left, you said, "Send me the butterfly," or use butterflies, like certain things. Or I know you stepped out of the room and then your mom took her last breath and then you went back in, but that was the way she wanted it. She didn't want you to see her take, those are really important aspects. I get names, I get sometimes how they look. But again, it's not a ghost walking through a wall like, say, December. It's much more of a first and third person experience, and they have to utilize my data bank. So there are certain references that
They have
come.
to curse like a truck driver.
What'd you say?
I said they have to curse like a truck driver to get to
Sometimes
you.
they do. Sometimes I'll be standing there and I'm like, I'm in like the 1970s in the basement. They have a kitchen down in the basement with cards, smoke filled room, and I have Grandpa Jimmy here. And they'll be like, oh my God, yeah. Like, it's just so weird. It's like having a daydream while I'm having like it's like an in-between space. So it's not so loud that you can't miss it until I'm into that flow of it. But these are just abilities. Like I've seen
Yeah.
people come into classes and have they just think they're an empath or a psychic or they just want to explore. They do really well with it. But I think the professional side's a little bit different. But I would say these are just abilities and they become gifts for other people when I get to share them with them.
How do you know you can trust someone? Because, you're talking evidence-based and not evidence-based, but
Trust
how do
someone
you,
from the other side or living?
yeah, just like if I was looking to go talk to someone or someone is listening right now and they're thinking about doing this, they've just lost a loved one, they want to come talk to someone, they're looking around. How do you know the person that you are going that I'm going to go talk to or
Sure.
is
So the
going to be
spirit
real?
communication is a very unique thing and it's predicated on a need. So sometimes someone comes in and they want to hear from, their son, let's say. And maybe he's not the first person that comes through. I'm not going to get like Civil War people. There's no intelligence of the divine design in that. And I just feel like you can't guarantee anybody, but almost all the time it works out where the person they want to hear from comes through first or second or third, or there's several people that come in together. They'll show me their dogs with them or cats. Like it's really interesting. It's like building out an energy space within the connection. But if somebody's looking for a reading, what I would say is you don't need to go for a reading every week or every month. If you really need, I do a lot of family work. So I'll sit with 2 or 3 people that lost people and they all know the same people. And there's really a cohesive energy in that. One-on-ones, I do a lot of that, Zoom, by phone. And I would just say, it can be really cathartic, but timing is important and also understanding the process. And I'm very adamant about the process. Like I only want them to say yes or no, or maybe, or they're not sure for the first 10 or 15 minutes. Cause my first job is like, who's here? How do we know it's them? Because a lot of times if I get somebody and I think it's a mom, it could be their mother-in-law. It might be their godmother. Maybe it's mom's mom, but it's not your friend's niece. And sometimes people kind of want to make it what it's not. So I would just say, let the evidence lead you to the people. And let me just
It's
say,
a,
I always
yeah.
ask for things that I can't Google. Like
Okay.
sometimes I'll get the birth name, but not the name they used, like things like that. And those are important to me. And the messaging is important too. It's not a conversation. It's a process of validation that turns into an engagement where bits of a conversation can happen.
And, we're just talking about you asking yes or no questions, but there seems to be a lot of code language that are referencing like colors or milestones as we're talking about. Why isn't there more of a direct conversation?
There is.
Okay.
That's just poor mediumship to me.
Okay.
I mean, I get the color thing, like, but it's a very simple, basic beginner form of like, if it's a living library, for example, every time I was getting somebody, I remember, so 2 different things. So as an example, I had these 2 ladies drive from Syracuse, like 5 hours away. I was really nervous I wasn't going to be able to read for them. And this was like my first year doing it. They came in, they sat down, and I had a woman here. And then all of a sudden, I was seeing in my mind's eye like a tiny baseball bat floating into a dollhouse garage made out of popsicle sticks. My brain was going, is this symbolic? Are they trying to show me grandkids, like a male and a female grandkid? What is it? And finally, I didn't say anything. I said, listen, I keep seeing this over and over. What's with the bat in the garage? And they were like, oh my God, before we left today to come here, we killed a bat in the garage. And I was like, oh yeah, I knew that. But like, the energy language, it doesn't matter if they spoke Russian because they have to impress upon me. So the information and the content I get will not be wrong, but the context that I understand it or deliver it in can be. So, and I'd rather be real than be right. Like if I'm not getting
Yeah.
something wrong, at least a little bit, I feel like I'm not pushing hard enough. But why can't it be a conversation? I guess John Edward talks about this, like it's like charades underwater because there's a big disconnect. They don't have a voice box. How are they supposed to speak to you? So
And
it's like it's versions of my thoughts that aren't quite mine. And there's certain aspects, and it depends on how deep the connection is. There are certain connections where I just can't get anything wrong, and in order to get in there, I make statements like, you understand dad passed. True? Yes. Do you understand also this was heart related? Yes. And it kind of builds from there. And I don't want people to tell me too much because, it's very easy for the mind to get in the way and create a narrative that's not there. And if my ego gets in the way, I'll want to be right. I'll screw it up.
And why is this happening? Like, why do you think that we're able to talk to people on the other side?
It's a really good question. I don't know. I stopped at like, I know the reason why I do this. I didn't mean to do it, for money or anything like that. I mean, by the time I was 35, I could have just not worked. But I would say that, the why is difficult. I would say that part of it is like now you can throw a rock and hit a medium. There's mediums everywhere. It's like out of the closets because of the TV shows, I think. So I think part of it is the raising of consciousness, maybe to, be more aligned with the advancement in technology. I'm not really sure. But I would just say that to me, this mediumship is very universal. I've had people come in that are Hindu and their belief is that, after 40 days, they reincarnate. But I've had people come in and I didn't know anything about that when I first started. And I did this reading for a woman and it was like 14 years after her dad passed. And it was one of the best connections I can remember. I knew he was a doctor and so was she. So the why is there's a love and a hope that they're trying to instill, but what they're not trying to do is give us advantages or definites about like making life. They can't pull strings unless we like it's not what I thought it would be. Like I thought, well, why would my person come through and not reference my birthday yesterday? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like those kinds of things. So I'm so caught up in the doing it every day. The why on the bigger picture, I would just say because it's got to have a purpose because mediumship is just a neon sign in the spiritual shop. So are psychic mediums. And I would just say it's not about getting closure. It's about understanding better. And I would say on some level, mediumship, if evidential mediumship can prove that there's some semblance of life after life, or even a maybe, then there's proof that you're where you're supposed to be and that you're loved and looked after. And I just feel like I never had anybody stuck in between. I'm Irish and Italian. You can't get raised any more Catholic. And I never, I thought people get stuck or in between, caught in between or lost or be angry. Never had anybody come through and be like, you should be sadder. Like they always come through and there's a message of hope, and even difficult relationships come through, like ex-mother-in-law or dad that was a really bad alcoholic and wasn't part of their lives, but there's a purpose for them coming through in a greater context. And it's like other spirits let them in. So, and not to say too, I would say if somebody took their own life, I felt things like they're with everybody else, but because sometimes parents worry like, oh my God, but especially religious people. But it's almost like there's a version of us on the other side, that greater part of us is always there. So the soul part of us that is experiencing this life as an individual spirit is still connected to the damage that was done, but they can't do anything about it. So, I just feel like they're always trying to help us through and give us just enough for us to take the next step and trust. I
Do you
wish we
feel
get the answers we wanted, and maybe at some point we will, but we've been doing ghost shows and all this other stuff for so long, I just feel like if we haven't got it now, and there's a guy in Italy who had a radio not plugged in and he would have a seance and voices would come through and it would talk.
Huh.
So there's a lot of crazy stuff and I don't know the why, to be honest.
do you believe in God?
I do.
Okay.
I
Because you
don't
said
believe
you
it's a male or a female. To me, God is like a divine energy that runs through you, from you, to you, so that life happens for you. I feel like it's like a religious type of God.
I've heard that successful communication is more likely with recently passed individuals, and we mentioned that. You just mentioned that before,
Really? I've heard the opposite.
that they're older.
Yeah, well, it's weird. Like, so sometimes I can feel I feel them next to me and behind me when they come in.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can feel the presence of them in a way that lets me know that they've been there a while or they passed a long time ago. It's more for evidence purposes. But I would say, like, I did a reading for somebody just a couple years ago. I remember she came in, she booked like 5 months in advance to connect, I guess, with her mom had passed. And when she came in, her nephew had passed, I guess, the day or two before. I didn't know. And as we were connecting, I'm like, listen, I keep getting this male here who died on a motorcycle and there's a purple bike motorcycle. And she's like, God, I just went to the funeral yesterday and they had that out at the service. And it was like he came through so clear. So I've heard people like other psychics or mediums where they'll be like, oh, they need 90 days or this and that. But I feel like there's not a timing issue, whether it's 10 years or 50 years or 10 days, but the emotional resonance of the living person can get in the way. if somebody's too emotional, then everything you say is never good enough, and
Yeah.
they're just like they just don't get it. They're too in their own
Yeah.
like hurt, if you will. So if somebody's emotionally available, or even if they're in a group and they're not expecting it, then it can come. But I would always say to somebody, if somebody just passed, give it at least a couple months so you can like take it in.
And then how do you manage client expectations before reading?
Yeah, that's another good question. It's a toughie because, I would say in some ways, nowadays I'm very clear with what I do. And if it's not working in the first 5 to 10 minutes, naturally, I just stop it. And I'm like, look, I'll give you one reschedule. We'll schedule it a different date. And if it doesn't work again, I'll give you a refund. So, I just try to be as real as possible. I think it depends on the person because there's a lot of people that come to me now, and because there's so much access to mediums on Zoom, like if you go on social media and you just type in psychic medium, like millions of people come up. It's
Yeah.
insanity. I think some of it's good because it's out of the closets and in people's living rooms instead. Like I do fundraisers for local high schools and football teams and firehouses and things like that. Like that I would have never heard of a medium going to PBA meetings or something and doing a fundraiser when I was younger. So I think in that way it's good. But so it depends on the person, but I would say overall, once they understand that the evidence is kind of where the connection begins, and what they're trying to do is validate their life after life. They're not here to have a conversation. I can try to do my best, and a really good connection, a really good medium can bring them into the room in a way where you can feel the presence and be like, oh my God, you understand that a tattoo here? And he cursed a lot, or he was really big and he had all this charisma, or he was really artsy and kind of quiet and kind of like, all these different aspects where they really feel the presence of them. But in order to trust that, they have to have evidence to get them
Yeah,
there.
and then why do this? Because they're not giving you just talking to them, you just connecting with them. And I hear this from a lot of people who've lost loved ones. They'll always say, if I could only have one more conversation. My question again is going back to why would I do this? If I was sitting there
Well, I would say
thinking,
if somebody doesn't want to, or if they're really like, if it has to be A, B, and C for it to be real, I can feel that when somebody comes in where, it's like, if this is real, you're going to say 777, my grandma's here, something like that. And sometimes that'll happen, but the demand mentally creates an energy fence for mediumship. So why somebody would come in, if somebody really just wants to understand that their person's okay, right? I've never had anybody not come through. I've never had anybody come through and not be okay. If somebody wants to feel that their person is really okay, give them some sort of peace, even if it's temporary, then that is a way to go. And I would say, what does that look like? It's different for everybody, but it is not bringing them back to life. And I tell people that, especially with kids or spouses. And I just feel like sometimes I can do my version of a 10 out of a 10 reading. And they're just like, well, how come they mentioned the two sisters, but they didn't mention this or that? They're just stuck on what they're not getting. So I can't really help with that. I can only be honest and give the best that I can. And I would say you can't please everybody. And I don't try to.
yeah.
I do feel though, the people that I have touched, they would give you a lot of reasons why it helped them.
And then this leads into my next question. Are people ever disappointed that they came to you or that, because you just mentioned that if they would say, why did the two sisters come, not the third sister, or why? So I
Yeah.
imagine that can lead to someone being like, well, I'm really mad that my,
Sometimes
yeah,
I think, but I don't know. I'm the people that are drawn to me and that come to me tend to be very understanding because the information and the evidence and the connection with the other people is so strong that, there's a lot of good things. The unexpected is where the magic is. So it doesn't matter if it's somebody's ex-mother-in-law or ex-husband, like, people come through in various ways. So yeah, disappointment. I mean, I think the biggest disappointing thing is if they come and I just can't get a connection for them and I have to reschedule them. That doesn't happen that often, but I just was sharing that because I just always want to be honest with someone.
yeah.
It's like if I keep pushing the gas pedal, it's going to flood. It's just not going to work. There has to be more of I'm picking up an energy phone and listening, and then I'm receiving and I'm conveying, I'm relaying. It's not like my mind going, "How did you pass? How old were you?" It's not like that. As soon as you get into the brain, you're out of the connection. So it's much deeper than that, or it's a higher mind.
And after sitting with so many grieving people and acting as a bridge to the other side, what has this work taught you about how we should be living our lives?
That's a great question, Carl. I would say A lot of people might say forgiveness, but I would say acceptance. I would say acceptance that your person's on the other side, acceptance that, your husband or your friend or your boss is who they are, acceptance that, your job is what it is, and this doesn't mean acceptance and don't change anything. But if you can't be aware of something, you can't accept it. If you can't accept it, you can't take any action. Sometimes the best action is no action. And I think that the biggest thing that I get in various ways, emotionally especially, is if you don't own it, it will own you. And you don't want it to own you from a place that you're not aware of it. So, people think like will come in years after the fact and of losing someone and they're like, no, I'm good. And I could just feel like they never got well. So I would just say own it before it owns you, or it will own you. And, people say family is everything. And I have a big family, love my family, but also people that resonate with you and your tribe. And, I would say if there's forgiveness for other people, I would say it has to be for you first, but the acceptance I think is the biggest thing because once people accept where they are, then everything is possible. And also I live by the words, I don't know. Let's see. Because if I don't know, then all possibilities are open. And when I think
Yes.
I know, my world is, I had to unlearn a lot of things doing mediumship. So I would say being teachable and being open instead of thinking that this is the only way for one thing, even with mediumship. There's a lot of pathways to it. And there are some woo woo mediums out there that help other people. It's not my thing, but like I think, again, if it doesn't help or it doesn't heal, it's probably not real. Like when
Yeah.
people start talking about you have this dark energy or this curse, like I guess if you believe it, maybe it has some power. But yeah,
Yeah.
you ask really good questions.
Well, thank you. And as we wrap up, is there anything that I should have asked you that I have not asked you?
That's a good one, man. Something.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I'm
No, totally
just
fine. I would say I think your questions are really good with the why, but what I feel like I like sharing about is that the whole thing about these being abilities and not like I'm not a special elevated soul. Like maybe because I'm, you know, not a spiritual giant that this life offered this to me so that I can learn. Like I don't know. I just try to be as, the only way to humility is through honesty. And I try to put myself in a position and with people around me that don't co-sign my BS. And I don't know. I just feel like I would say that the one question that I get asked the most is how do I know they're okay or where are they? And it's not aware, I wish I could describe that. It's much more of like a wave, a frequency or something like that, or in another dimension. But yeah, I think you did pretty good.
Drew Callie, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you out there for listening. As always, let me know what you think. Put your thoughts in the comment section. And until next time, everyone, be safe.
Thank you.